Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Laserforce International's Day 5 ZAP Report. Finals are over, the tournament's finished, and we're going to go over pretty much everything from the final day. Just so you know, this will be a recap as a ZAP Report. I've come to find people have been messaging me saying, hey, thanks for doing this. I don't have time to watch the whole stream back, and so it's really nice to just have the highlights to kind of catch up. It's not every game is... there's predictable games and there's less predictable games and outcomes and highlights to look at. So I'm going to do that. But later on, there will be an episode where I'm going to do kind of a full recap of the tournament, break down the story of each of the teams and talk about some of the takeaways that we can pull from this tournament. But today I'm just going to give you the normal ZAP report for day 5 finals. So let's, without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and we will get into some pretty awesome storylines. Let's start with the recap as always. And I'm going to turn up the video quality here, see if that helps. So, all right. So we're through round play. So at this point, we're looking at finals. I can tell you ooh, that's fun. Look at that little graphic. First place is Brisboom. The second place was the BDRL, the Brisbane B team. And third place was the International Men of Mystery. So you can see the bracket here. And the way it shook out, I almost want to go backwards. So finals was between Brisboom and BDRL. 6-0, 2 dominant victories for Brisboom. The game before that, International Men of Mystery fought the BDRL for a chance to get into the finals. They were unsuccessful. Ultimately, finals went to the BDRL, and they got a chance to play Brisboom in that glorious final match. If I'm honest with you guys, I'm confused because I didn't think that the International Men of Mystery won either of those games, but it's saying 4-2. Just checking myself before I wreck myself. Looks like Men of Mystery won a game off of 2 penalties, 1 post game. I saw something about that on the Discord. Okay. This is all live, I thought they lost both games, but turns out they won a game. So I'm going to take this and we're going to move it into game highlights, and then we will talk about that in a moment. Okay, apparently Men of Mystery won a game in the semifinals, so that's pretty cool. Men of Mystery 6-0 All-American Supercharged, putting All-American in 4th place. 5th place went to Auckland A, who were 6-0'd by International Men of Mystery. Laserforce Crew, 6-0'd by All-American Supercharged. If we go back down here, Loveland Curveballs in 7th place, 6-0'd by Laserforce Crew, and Olympus in 8th place, 6-0'd by Auckland A. So, let's get into some game highlights out of those games. So the first highlight is, hey, look, International Men of Mystery take a game off of the BDRL. I think there was 1 in-game penalty that stuck for 1,000 and 1 post-game that stuck for 1,000, putting Men of Mystery over the edge. So this was not an in-the-field win, but clearly the penalties were substantial enough to account for needing to actually take 2,000 points off the BDRL. El Diablo surviving with 2 lives. Pretty significant. He had a great hit diff, 1.55. Strong 9.3 heavy game by the Fear Turkey. 4 missiles. 2 medikits, which not everyone can get that on Danta. But having a pretty great hit diff on Rook, who the scouts have been a huge problem when you're fighting the BDRL. Prawn Boy and the Rook have just been absolutely dominant. So Fear Turkey really just controlling pretty much the whole game here, keeping lots of people down throughout this showing. And then El Diablo coming in really strong here, 18-5 on Screever, who has been a menace this tournament. yeah, well done by International Men of Mystery showing up in finals and getting that. Um, and of course, BDRL, they're almost in that territory now where you skip over talking about how well they did because they have just been far and away the second place dominant team this tournament. 5 missiles for Screever, 1.59 hit diff from Prawn Boy, 1.4 from Danta, staying alive on 2 lives. Incredible showing from them. Well done. All right, I have a few game highlights that we'll get into. I'm gonna actually give you a brief summary of 4 different games because there were that many that were just awesome. So let me see if I can actually organize these properly because that'd make my life a little easier. All right, let's try that. So the first game we're going to look at is the Loveland Curveballs versus the Laserforce Crew. So this was one of the first games of the day, or I think it was the first game of the day. And the day before, I had said, hey, I'm actually going to continue to rank Loveland Curveballs above Laserforce Crew. I think this is when they get it together. And I even shot them some advice about the Laserforce Crew. Well, I can tell you that the Laserforce Crew did not do what I thought they would do. They had an amazing couple games that absolutely proved they are above the mostly rookie Loveland Curveballs and not going to lose in their home arena. So Scraps with a dominant performance, 5 missiles. Let's see, what were the specs here? You know, a negative hit diff, which is common for a commander, but getting Waffle Raptor down 18 to 15 and 3 lives off of Redneck Tech Medic. Sexy Meow having an awesome showing on Scout as well as Jeff Pex with a 1.5 hit diff. Toyota playing a strong heavy weapons. He did get missiled 5 times, but as I'll talk about in the clip, he played a significant role in making sure this win happened. He did get 5 medic hits. And then, of course, Pat and Lucy having a positive hit diff for each of them, holding down a great defense. The Loveland Curveballs, they came in, this was their first game, and they had a new lineup. And Waffle Raptor did get 5 missiles off. And I will add, he had a lot of penalties in this first game because his pack kept, I believe it was his first or second game, his pack continued to zap out like it just, or shock out was the word. Like I think it was turning off mid-game and he had to keep getting reactivated. So that was kind of strange. Azeroth 4-4 on ammo. You know, there were some strong performances here. But basically what happened, I'm going to show you the first, like, 30 seconds of this game. So what we saw first right off the bat is Loveland Curveballs have brought out a completely different lineup. There was actually a false start because originally Redneck Tech was actually benched for this game, and Angel was put in as medic. So that was the lineup, and then as the game began, we see the LFC get up to the top, and we hear Waffle Raptor calling out real life. I think something happened to Angel. I don't know what, but they had to go relog, and Redneck Tech came in as medic. So right off the bat, whatever that first idea was, like that got really shaken up for the Curveballs, which, you know, maybe Curveballs happen not just to the teams they're playing, but to themselves as well. I really feel for Angel, and she was such a great player to have on the team. So hope she's doing well. Anyway, after that false start, we see Redneck Tech come in on medic, and Redneck Tech had not played a single medic game for the entire tournament, I'm pretty sure. Not a single resupply game. So right off the bat, this is already a really different opening for Curveballs. Nothing like this had been put out before. Scraps Commander and Toyota heavy. We had seen a lot of Scraps and Meow heavy the night before. So this was a little different. Kind of playing more of a standard lineup that the LFC had throughout the week. Anyway, in the first few seconds, check this out. So right off the bat, we see Scraps booking it over through the enemy team. He runs up and he sits in the enemy resupply. And you can tell this greatly confuses the Curveballs. So Azra is here shouting for the team. Oh no, Redneck is here shouting for Azra. Redneck runs away. Azra's trying to fight the commander one-on-one. It's not working. There's another hit onto Redneck Tech as Redneck runs down the hallway. Azra's here shouting for a reset. Scraps stays stubborn. She gets one reset, not enough. He has one shield left. And then who got Scraps down? Then it was Redneck got the shot into Scraps. But he's still here. He's just sitting here. So Red cannot set up their resupply. There's the reset. Waffle Raptor going. Scraps gonna go ahead and eat a missile for his trouble. But right off the bat, that is 2 meta kits for Scraps. Red has not been able to set up. They've been greatly disrupted. And Curveballs are winning on hit diff out in the field right now, but they're down 20 lives to 111. Toyota over here holding down a pretty strong defense on the back line. I almost want to skim through this game because we kind of see we see Redneck, he's hiding. He hasn't played Resupply with Azra before, and I think there are some synergy issues. We see over here comes, I believe that's Toyota. So, yep, Toyota runs right into the resupply, stands there, and shoves them out. So there goes Redneck, and Azra hides right here. So what the Laserforce crew did in this game, right off the bat, they didn't change up anything crazy on positions. They just changed their strategy. They basically said, Curveballs are not going to be able to stop us if we just send a 3-hit through their whole team to just sit inside their resupply. And unfortunately for the Curveballs, they were right. Because putting Redneck on Medic and Azra on Ammo, you could see some serious synergy issues. And I have all the respect in the world for Azra, but having that synergy with your resupply matters a lot. They really didn't have good plans for where to go in case there was a backup. And you even see a couple friendly fire hits onto the medic in their effort trying to defend their medic. So I think it flustered them, and ultimately the Laserforce crew run away with this game pretty handily. Okay. We are going to pull this one to the back. I got the games mixed up here. All right. Next one we're going to look at is the BDRL versus the International Men of Mystery. And this was the first set of games they played. So Fear Turkey and Simply OK switched positions. Simply OK came out on Heavy and Fear Turkey came out in Commander, and they didn't win the first game. But they kept that change in the second game. This is in the winner's bracket. This is the first time they face off. And in the second game, the BDRL defeat International Men of Mystery, but the difference in score is really only there by elimination bonus. They win by 600 points otherwise. So it was a very close game throughout. The BDRL had really great hit diff. Rook and Prawn Boy went off for about a 1.5 hit diff each. Let's just look. Let's see. So Rook hit Fear Turkey 20 for 8 and hit Simply OK 26 for 9. Otherwise, the one hits on the Men of Mystery were beating him, but he got 4 meta kits into Old Man Than. And Prawn Boy was no different. He also got 4 meta kits. He shot down Fear Turkey 14, Simply OK 13, but a little less of a significant hit diff from him. Otherwise, Twin all the way down with a 0.67 hit diff and 3 meta kits. So Men of Mystery really punched back hard in the second game. They kept a cool head and they decided we're going to run the same strategy back. And Fear Turkey and Simply OK basically just tanked the shots for the team. They came out with a 0.65 and a 0.56 hit diff respectively, but Sergeant Tucker came out with a 7.5 scout score and a 1.8 hit diff. Sorry, that's more like 1.9. Fireball DK came out with a 7k ammo score and a 1.9 hit diff. So what happened was they were able to make up the score by enabling Sergeant Tucker and Fireball DK to have just so much free reign into the field. This was a 21-6 hit diff on Twin by Sergeant Tucker, 21-11 on Screever, and 12-7 on Rook. Only one medic hit. Fireball DK, he was able to get 18 and 7 with Twin, 22 and 15 with Screever, 12 and 5 with Rook. No meta kits, unfortunately. And, El Diablo had a pretty respectable one, too, this game. 15 and 10 on Screever and 3 meta kits on Tadanta, 7 and 3 on Archdruid. So let's take a quick look from this clip. I think this clip right here shows a bit of a story here. At the end of the day, the BDRL were controlling this game pretty well. They've had such good field control in general. Meta Mystery were ultimately bleeding lives a lot faster than the BDRL. And the BDRL, as always, having such incredible synergy. So I believe this is Twin right here on the left, coming back up into his resupply. He's about to drop, so he's dropping. And like clockwork, I was, if you were watching the stream with me at the watch party, or you heard me on the commentating, I would say almost with the annoyance in my voice was strong because I haven't watched a single nuke from the BDRL where Screever wasn't right there on cue, ready to walk in and push out the enemy resupply. No ability to make trails against him, no ability to do anything to stop this move except for get up inside the resupply and cancel Twin's nuke. This has happened over and over and over and over again. And if you didn't employ this strategy, you didn't place very high in this tournament. So BDRL, both 3 hits are back. No one can get resupply. And I think this is, back here in the Meta Mystery, both 3 hits are back. No one can get resupply. Screever's right there as the nuke goes off. No trails are happening. And to be honest, they don't seem ready for this move. The Fear Turkey down to 3 lives right at this moment. So simply okay. He kind of ducks over here as Stan runs away and Fear Turkey runs away. As they need to, because Fear Turkey's about to get killed out of the game. So Screever takes out Fear Turkey, puts him down to 2 lives here. But simply okay recognizing he's not going to have the reset on me. Which actually, to me, was a little strange. I suppose Simply Okay had a backtrack. Okay, so this was actually really good of Simply Okay. A while ago, he had a backtrack, and he got tagged down, so he never came up. So using that to his advantage, Simply Okay sits there, knowing that Screever has to back out. He tags him down, and Fear Turkey's still here at 2 lives. Simply Okay is pretty much just defending. He has to make sure that Fear Turkey can get some lives here. He's standing up front, and then he backtracks, which is a really solid play for a heavy, because once you backtrack, Screever could come in and push them all out, but Simply Okay will ultimately get to have a free tag on him and maintain his position. Screever leaves, but Twin is right there to continue the assault. So that's another hit into Old Man Than. He's bled, I think, 2 or 3 lives at this point. Simply Okay just using his backtracks, staying solid. He's being patient, and he's giving Fear Turkey a chance. Fear Turkey's back at 14 lives. And now Simply Okay with 1915 or 915 can get a little more back into the game. So they both begin getting resupplied, and then there's the Fear Turkey holding off Twin on that attack. So you see them both kind of doing a 2-man defense. But this shows 2 things. One, it shows the stability and coordination of the Meta Mystery in this game. Throughout the game, like it's a long grind. And they remain ahead partially due to bases throughout, but the score remains pretty even. Ultimately, Old Man Than gets killed out before Danta, and it's an elimination. But all the way up through the game, it doesn't necessarily appear that it's going to end that way. It was close throughout, and there was a lot of back and forth. But at the end of the day, BDRL won that one, and that clip basically shows the coordination and the immense pressure that BDRL put on the field. Meta Mystery were not able to overcome that, unfortunately. Okay, our 3rd game highlight. Let's see, we're going to move that back one more time. Okay, this 3rd highlight is going to be the International Meta Mystery versus the All-American Supercharged. This was our highlight storyline from the first game of the tournament. You had a lot of kind of East versus West, some legends of the scene versus the current world champions, and DK and Than, kind of the second, third place looking Sorry, I was about to call Inner Peace the second place team. They were the third place team from last year. Second place in round play. And El Diablo. So coming into the tournament, the public had ranked All American Supercharged at a higher power level than the Men of Mystery. And two of us had ranked All American Supercharged as the second place team coming into this tournament. So the storyline of this has been pretty significant. Men of Mystery had won pretty much all their games against the All American Supercharged throughout this tournament. They won the first game here in finals. This is the losers bracket. Winner will proceed on to third place, and the loser of this game will take fourth place. All American Supercharged had rolled out their lineup that they had figured out in the night before, in the games before. They had Scythe on ammo. They put Stu on scout. They had and they had Brew heavy with Beans commander. In this game, they flipped it. So there was after they lost the first game, they flipped to something completely new. We had Stu on ammo, Beans on scout, Scythe on commander, and Brew on heavy. And this is kind of the classic lineup. This is what they ran when this was the 2018 USA Golden Freedom Eagles. There was a Scythe commander, Brew heavy, and Beans scout, and the other three weren't part of the ensemble at that time. So kind of bringing out a classic lineup. And the truth is that Scythe had struggled on commander in this tournament beforehand. So this was kind of a risky play. Ultimately, it actually paid off for them almost very well. It was a really back and forth game, but Old Man Than got killed out of the game before Do Not Pass Go. And there was even though the US West was winning most of the game, there was this shift, and the first game wasn't won by that much. So there was a shift where it looked like the Meta Mystery could get eliminated out of the game. So I'm going to play the clip and then I'll come back to the scoreboard. Right? You look at the scoreboard. Meta Mystery, they're down by 1,000 on score. Old Man Than dies without bases. And they've acquired all their bases. So that's it for the Men of Mystery. Brew could get one more base and elongate and increase the score gap by another 1,000. And Old Man Than's killed out of the game. Men of Mystery have 57 lives that they have to make last for 2 minutes and 43 seconds here. So really, it does look like Men of Mystery could have this. But you also see on the first floor here that the All-American team is actually pushed onto the first floor. And then you see over here, Sergeant Tucker, the Men of Mystery have the top floor, All-Americans on the first floor. We're going to watch this sequence because this changes everything. Simply OK is downstairs fighting. So he tags down Brew, puts him down to 7 lives. Okay, Fear Turkey's down there hunting as well. He takes out Cody. All right, Stu puts one into Brew. Simply OK puts another one into Brew. This is very unfortunate that Stu put this one into Brew because this might have changed a lot of things. He put his armor down 1. Simply OK takes another life off of Brew. Now Brew's down to 6. El Diablo's down there hunting. Sergeant Tucker's sniping and gets Beans. Do Not Pass Go hits Cody for lives. Okay, they take out Simply OK, but the Fear Turkey's down there. He gets Scythe, he gets Brew, he gets Scythe again. Simply OK starts a nuke. Brew is at 5 right at this moment. He was just at 6. Fear Turkey gets the reset onto Brew. And then he missiles Brew, taking him down to 3 lives, and the nuke goes off. And Brew is out of the game before Do Not Pass Go, without one of his bases. And this immediately changes everything. Because now suddenly, the Men of Mystery, even without their medic, can push to swing back the score and get this elim. And the score is already flipped now. Just in this sequence, this giant wall of red, DK, Sergeant Tucker, El Diablo, just farming points off of the enemy team. And ultimately, we push forward a few more minutes. Do Not Pass Go is killed out. And the Men of Mystery are able to win both games. I think Do Not Pass Go dies at some point. But the score gap stays about there. Uh, Scythe is looking for that next nuke, but I don't know if it actually comes for him. He might have been hiding. So, or might have been getting tagged. So that's the game. Men of Mystery win it by about 2,000 in a pretty epic fashion. Just pretty decisively making them the better team this tournament, because I don't think they dropped a game to All American. Simply okay with the 11K Commander game. 24-29 on Scythe, so Scythe outshot him, but he got beaten 17-8 and 2 medic hits. Cody was also really hunting down Simply okay. Former Beasts of the West team members, 13-23. Fear Turkey with a 9K heavy score, 22-11 on Scythe, 22-10 and 2 missiles on Brew. Again, Cody, 9-29. Cody was one of the heroes of this team. We're going to check out his score in a second. And Fireball DK coming in with that 6K ammo score, almost a 2 hit diff, 25-8 on Brew, 7-3 on Beans, and 2 medic hits from the ammo. Way to go. Sergeant Tucker not having the greatest game there. El Diablo getting just above the 1 hit diff. Old Man Than 0.5. So this was a close game. There were definitely people on both sides that were pulling weight. We can look at Cody, who had the 23-29. He was very impressive this tournament, I gotta say. And I believe he won All-Star Scout. If we look down, I saw that in the Discord. Stu had a fantastic game on ammo with the 1.67 hit diff. Got Fear Turkey down 13-7. Something okay, 8-5. And 1 medic hit for himself to boot, 4-1 on Sergeant Tucker. And Do Not Pass Go with the 1.6. Defending himself really well. 6-2 on Josiah, the Fear Turkey. 4-2 on the attacking Fireball DK ammo. But the storylines in this game are also really cool, and I'll talk about them in my giant breakdown. But when you're just thinking like, who was the better U.S. team, most people thought it would be U.S. East. Even I thought it would be U.S. East. And these are my guys that I play with and just got to play with last year. But they absolutely leveled up and showed like, no, we are the best players from the U.S. here at this tournament. And El Diablo. And from Germany. Okay, final game we're going to look at. We got to look at finals. It's finals. No matter what kind of game finals was, you got to highlight finals. So finals was Brisboom versus the BDRL. And Brisboom took both games handily. This was the final game of the 2 games. So Taipan coming in with an 8.5 commander. Only got 1 missile out. Rusty, 5 missiles, 1.5 on heavy. Fantastic game out of him. Sharpshooter with the 3.3 hit diff. Glader with the 5.8 hit diff. 16-1 on Twin. Now, the reason for these hit diffs may become kind of apparent because we had a pretty comical situation. Or you might call it an epic situation to end the game. So Screever and Archdruid getting killed out a little before the medic in this one. Screever did get a missile off. Prawn Boy with the 1.35 hit diff in finals. That's something to be proud of. 9-5 on Rusty, 4-1 on Basil, and Sharpshooter got 3 hits into him. But that's pretty much as far as the success of the BDRL went in this game. We can look in finals, and this is how the finals ended for them, with Twin on 12 lives and 0 shots and a nuke. You see him just running around the arena. You hear the Brisbane players calling him out everywhere he goes. There he goes this way. There goes Glader running up that way. There's JFK looking to head him off over here. So it's almost funny, and you're like, can Twin get this nuke off with 6 Brisboom players hunting him while he has no shots to even defend himself? Twin starts the nuke, and Twin detonates the nuke. And that is the ultimate final possible dunk you can get. Really nothing more he can do except try to land his missiles, which will be a tall order on Brisboom in their own arena. Gets Rusty down to 3 lives, which I actually think shows a lot of skill on his part. He knows he doesn't need to get more lives at this point. It's just hunting now. Nothing more that Twin can really do except eventually get tagged down to 7, 6, 5. Certainly a missile or two goes off in here. Sharpshooter getting that all-important life boost right there, putting Rusty back up to 9 off the brink of death. And there's a missile from Rusty and a couple tags from Glader to wrap up the game. Beans, just like last year, pulling the camera off the stand and watching the glorious champions coming down the ramp to receive their trophy. Very well done by Brisboom. In fact, so well done. We're going to highlight them in a moment. My player highlight for the tournament, or for this final day, was Screever. He had the BDRL really had to maintain their spot. They really only had to face International Men of Mystery a couple times, and they did incredible because the International Men of Mystery are all some of the top players in the world, and they're renowned names. And BDRL never flinched. I suppose they flinched by my surprise in that finals game, but no one. It didn't really make a difference. They earned the right to move on to finals and face Brisboom and show that we're better than all these other 6 teams. It was fantastic. Screever was the only player to sneak in to the top tier of players in MVP amongst the other Brisboom players. So he got above JFK just by a few points. Otherwise, no one else was able to do that. And it was an amazing showing from him, playing heavy pretty much the whole tournament. And, this doesn't show up on the scoreboard, but just his ability to break into teams, timing with Twins nuke, again, kind of shows you, like, if you want to be a good Laserforce player in the current scene, you've got to be more than the sum of your parts. I don't care about Screever's individual talent one bit. I care that he was so good at teamwork. That's what made him so good. Every time Twin dropped a nuke, Screever was there, flushing out the enemy team, picking up all those hits. He didn't need to do it on his own. Teamwork is cool, kids. Get some. All right. We're going to highlight the team from this tournament, or from this day, is going to be Brisboom. Again, no one wanted to talk about him. If you... I don't know. See, my sense, just from when I was talking to people about the tournament, when I was watching the stream, it's almost like you wanted to just forget this team. You didn't want to watch any of their games. You just wanted to throw your hands up and say, yeah, it's Brisbane. They're just going to win. And I felt pretty insistent on trying, even in the commentary, when I was watching Brisbane versus Olympus, like I kind of forced us into a conversation about, like, okay, but what if you were trying to beat Brisbane? What would it take? Because I think if you want to have any chance of beating them, you gotta act as though you could beat them. At the end of the day, I'm pretty sure they're all mortal men. I'm pretty sure they all make mistakes. And technically they are beatable. It's just, what are they doing to help them win, and how would you counter that? Well, even though I do bet you people were asking those questions on site this tournament, trying to find some way, because if you could take a game off of this team, it would make you a legend. It didn't happen all tournament. I'm gonna break down this team more in depth. I'm gonna actually watch a little footage. I want to actually think about, like, why were they so dominant. But for today, I'm just gonna tell you how dominant this team was. The team you're looking at right now on this screen, I will make the case that they were the most dominant team in Laserforce International's history in the LF Stats era. I don't have much data beyond 2014, but we're talking about in the last 11 years with all the tournaments on LF Stats. This was the most dominant team performance ever. Here's why. First, completely undefeated. There was only one single game where they did not eliminate the enemy team. They had a 2.42 score ratio. In the closest game by an out-of-state team, they won by 16,521 points, including an elim, and that was against the Men of Mystery. In the closest game against the BDRL, they won by 14,622 points with no elim. Taipan set the new record for the highest MVP in a tournament round play at 30.19, followed by Rusty at 28.25. Their entire team was in the top 7 in MVP, with the only player to breach into the 6th place being Screever. Based on win ratio and score ratio, this was the most dominant team in internationals in the LF Stats era. They were more dominant than the 2018 Golden Oldies and the 2024 Loveland Phoenix. The only team to match their score ratio is Brisbane from 2015 in Loveland, but that team did drop games in both round play and finals. Asterisk on finals. That tournament feels kind of like I was like a child, but no one will tell me what actually happened. They just all tell me, yeah, it was messed up. I need someone who's there and wasn't like a child to tell me what actually happened. But they did lose games both in round play and finals in 2015. And the only teams to match their win ratio is Detroit A from 2019, but their score ratio was far lower at 1.69. And they only had 12 eliminations. And it's partially because Detroit is not an elimination-heavy arena. They're by far the least elimination-heavy, actually. But also the 2014 Brisbane A team, who had a 2.35 score ratio and also allowed one non-elimination game. So they had a lower score ratio, even though they had the same win percentage. By all these metrics, you're looking at the most dominant performance by any team in the international LF Stats era. And what else can you say? I'll have more to say, but for now, let's just revel in their glory. They did an amazing job. Amazing's an understatement. They were so good that most people kind of just checked out of watching a lot of their games and trying to even defeat them. Okay, my favorite storylines. Okay, we'll have to get that. We'll get to the re-rankings at the end. Don't look. We'll get to the re-rankings at the very end. So I have 2 storylines that I want to talk about from this tournament. So first of all, one storyline was the idea of switching positions in finals. This is something that, Loveland Phoenix did it last year. And Loveland Phoenix was the only team to really do it in finals last year. And it was something done, it wasn't really done in 23. Not really. What I'm talking about is playing one set of positions throughout most of the tournament and then in finals flipping some positions around. And the idea behind it is that you throw the enemy off with something that you're prepared with and they are not prepared with, and therefore you have an advantage. However, it's a double-edged sword because if you don't get very much practice with that lineup, it can also come back to bite you. We did it in 24. The other times I remember it happening are really more like 2019, where some teams were flipping things around in finals. I remember Tandor playing Scout most of the tournament and then coming out on Commander. I believe Fireball DK and Odin's Fist flipped heavy in Commander in finals. So we're going to look at some of the ways because basically every team except BDRL and Olympus did this to some degree. So one of the biggest storylines is International Men of Mystery kept their same lineup all week long with Sergeant Tucker and Simply Okay. Sorry. Man, I'm mixing up my words here. It's been a long week, folks. And I've got flustered because this isn't actually the game I'm talking about. Sorry. I'm using this as an example because this is actually from day 4. Auckland stayed very consistent all tournament. They didn't change a thing as far as their positions go, which there's a lot to be said for that, a lot of benefits to that. But I wanted to point out, right before finals, they did try out flipping Leech and Morange. They went back, but it was interesting to note they did try it. The Brisboom played a bunch of different positions throughout the week. You saw mostly Basil on Commander, and you saw mostly Glader on Heavy. And towards the final day and going into finals, they kept this new lineup with Taipan Commander, Rusty Heavy, Sharpshooter Medic, Glader Ammo, Basel JFK scouts all through finals. So this was a savvy move on their part. It's possible. It's very possible they didn't need to conceal this lineup, but in doing so, they denied other teams a chance to watch them play and learn what they were doing, learn how Rusty plays, learn how Taipan plays, and I think it paid off a lot. Especially like watching Rusty attack the new tower with those reflex shots was pretty dominant, and I didn't see other teams mimic that move very much. So maybe it was good of them to save some of those strategies. The international meta mystery here, simply okay in Fear Turkey, flip positions. What am I doing? I keep wanting to talk about that, and then it doesn't come up because I'm not pulling up that game. Where is it? Here it is. Fear Turkey Commander, simply okay heavy. It happened, I promise. And it led to one of the closest games they had. In the second match, they flipped back, I'm pretty sure. Okay, in fact, I am sure. Laserforce Crew, they were flipping as necessary. So they began the finals round, the finals with Toyota on heavy and Scraps on Commander. We see a flip here, Sexy Meow on heavy and Toyota Scout in their finals game against the International Meta Mystery. I think this move provided just some more potential upside. Toyota with the only player being having a positive hit diff on that team. And you saw them do that a little bit in round play, but for the most part, you saw Toyota heavy over and over and over again. Let me look at the teams right in front of me. So this Loveland Curveballs threw out a completely new lineup. Remember, their original lineup was going to have Angel on Medic here. So then they went with Redneck Tech on Medic, which he hadn't played that once in the tournament. He had always been a Scout, moving Ash and Lizzie onto Scout, Sabo on Commander, and Waffle Raptor on Heavy, where Ash had played a lot of 3-hit in the other positions throughout the week, and Azra on Ammo. All-American Supercharged, it felt as though they didn't have a firm lineup almost at all throughout the week. They were changing it up a lot. Some games it seemed like they were giving people rest. Other times it seemed like they were trying to figure out their main lineup. They were mainly going with, like, towards the end, we saw a lot of Beans Commander with Brew Heavy, and Scythe figuring out we're going to put him on Scout. Or sorry, Ammo with Stu on Scout. That was kind of the final decision coming into finals, and then they flipped up and put Scout on. Sorry, they put Scythe on Commander. You guys can tell I'm actually kind of losing my train of thought here. I didn't organize this very well. I apologize. Okay. So yeah, they ended up with Scythe on Ammo for a minute there, and then he ended up on Commander in the very final game. So that was an intentional flip in their very final chance to win. They moved Scythe up to Commander, put Beans on Scout, and moved Stu to Ammo, and it almost worked. Again, that was a surprise, and you actually saw Scythe. I think he had, like, early in that game, he had like a 2-hit diff. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much every team except the BDRL and Olympus had some kind of lineup change coming into finals. That's pretty cool. And there can definitely be some debate as far as, like, how do you do that well? How do you do it in a way that helps you and doesn't hinder you? I also want to throw out, like, the Laserforce crew in the first game against the Curveballs didn't change their lineup necessarily. They just changed their opening, and that's also a good move. Without changing positions, you can change the way that you approach the beginning of the game, and Scraps getting into their resupply was just brutal. So it's possible I just got way too many tabs. Okay. That was one storyline. And then I will, let's see. I will unshare my screen for a minute to give you my favorite, my second favorite storyline, or my other favorite storyline. This would just be the idea of passing the torch and sharing the knowledge. So there was a lot of handing off the torch from this tournament. We saw a lot of players come out of retirement to play in this tournament. Some of the highest level play I've ever seen at an internationals. And I would even try to see if I can do a study to find out if this was the highest level of play we've ever objectively seen on average at internationals. But we saw a lot of older players essentially sharing, not just sharing their knowledge, but providing opportunities to the next generation to step into their shoes, essentially. So for the Legends of Brisboom, Rusty, Tragedy, Glader, Taipan, JFK, and Basil entering that. Well, one, like Basil's the young guy on that team, and I'd never seen him before 23, but coming in, they allowed him this opportunity to play with them and get to know like the ins and outs, the intimate details of like what makes the Brisbane site so great. And the BDRL entered the scene as essentially dominant rookies for the most part. Most of them were. And getting to play over and over with Brisboom clearly helped make them, well, mini legends in their own right. The second place legends to beat all the other teams coming in. It's kind of like just like their I almost want to use the word forefathers, like just like the players before them, they are also dominant in their own arena. And frankly, if we see them go out, I could see them being dominant in other arenas too. It was amazing to see DK and Than passing knowledge onto Loveland, who last year, at least proved they can win in their own arena, and this year proving they can win in other arenas too. But we've seen DK and Than essentially have to be mercenary players, being kind of like the homeless California players. And you've seen them, team up with Chula Vista and the St. George players and Cedar City and kind of share some of like their sacred knowledge and teach people how they play. In this tournament, I think you saw, as much as I want to say like Loveland earned this on their own, I have to think a lot of the credit will go to DK and Than for sharing like, hey, here's how we play, here's our strategies. Now they know. El Diablo got his first internationals podium finish and got to be on a team with some of the top players in the world. Germany has not been involved in the SM5 scene internationally too much, but El Diablo's been coming out and he's had to really work to get where he's at. And he got to be on a team with the Lovelanders and Than and DK, and now he gets to see some of the knowledge that they had and experience what it's like to play on a team with that kind of synergy and teamwork. Tomik got to play in his first internationals and come alongside some of the USA greats, and certainly he got to learn a lot from them about how the game is played, and he gets to take that knowledge home with him. Guy Next Door had always played heavy on Auckland teams as long as I've been around and going back before I was around. And this was the tournament where he stepped into Medic and handed the 3-hit reins to his supporting cast. Leech played heavy, and he had two. I mean, I know Know-It-All is not a rookie technically, but his first away tournament, and one of his scouts got All-Star Scout. So you kind of see Guy Next Door getting to hand over more responsibility to his teammates. And this could be the beginning of something really great for Auckland. Even though they didn't place that high this tournament, this experience is going to be invaluable for them, going back to the drawing board and making themselves better for the next tournament. Lucy Dune was inducted into the Laserforce scene alongside some of the longtime legends who came back for an incredible run. I'm pretty sure most of those players haven't been playing too frequently until this last year. I know Toyota was recently, but Scraps, Sexy Meow, Jeff Pex, and Pat, these players, it seemed like that team had a really strong friendship, and Lucy got to come in and learn from them and get to be part of a really mature, synergistic team. And now she gets to take that knowledge with her as she goes forward into the scene. The Loveland Curveballs had Redneck Tech and Angel helping them. It's really special that Angel got to come in as a home site player and play alongside them and share her knowledge with them. And Redneck Tech has gotten to be around the scene for a long time. He has a lot of knowledge to share as well. In fact, it seems like kind of an honor. Like most A lot of players should get one tournament with Redneck Tech. And for Olympus, I know that Taipan was helping them out, and I presume many others were lifting them up, trying to help them take just a game, and they almost got a crucial game in finals. So all these zone players that have never played SM5 before, just being given the good vibes and the knowledge of the whole from the whole community to help them. You see so many younger, newer players benefit from the older generation in this tournament. And my hope is that in 5 years from now, even if a lot of the older players from this tournament are not playing, that we will see the ripple effect. That we will see a lot of these newer players bringing in more talent, more of their own friends and players, and showing out, using the knowledge they got from this tournament and the lessons they take away. Okay, there's my big history lesson, my big lecture. To end the ZAP report today, we're gonna go over the final rankings, because I made a lot of changes throughout the week. So normally this is where I would have re-ranked things, but we're gonna actually just compare the accuracy of rankings. So first over here, and by the way, I made little point ratings. So the way this chart works is that if it's green, it means you got it right. If it's yellow, you were 1 off, and if it's red, you were 2 or more positions off. And I give you 1 point if you're accurate, half a point if you were 1 off. So the most accurate prediction at the beginning of this tournament was by the community. You all showed the analysts that they don't know jack. You knew that Brisbane would be first, BDRL second. You didn't overthink it. Brisbane teams do really well in their home arena. Brisbane B teams have always been dominant. The only thing the community got wrong slightly was they flipped the All-American team over Men of Mystery. But International Men of Mystery proved they were the better team this tournament. Auckland A, Laserforce Crew, Loveland Curveballs, and Olympus, you got them right. So good job. You guys know better. I was the second most accurate, not by much. I was very wrong about All-American. I was very wrong about the BDRL. And I was wrong to believe that the Curveballs were going to beat the Laserforce Crew. I was wrong for doubting the Laserforce Crew. In this tournament, they took games off of Auckland. And I'm forgetting if they got close on All-American at one point. Then Kodama, he was right about Brisbane, of course. He was not right about Auckland A, not right about the BDRL. His way of thinking, though, he was the only one out of the three of us to put the Men of Mystery. In fact, he was the only one out of all of us to put the Men of Mystery above All-American, and he was right to do so. Was he a little too extreme on how bad All-American would do or how good Men of Mystery would do? Yes, but his idea about the new way of thinking or the new generation was absolutely spot on. And finally, Glader didn't have the greatest predictions, but he was the highest on the BDRL out of the three of us, believing in their talent and knowing how good they are. But he was very wrong about the Laserforce Crew. And then just looking at me throughout the week, it'd be interesting to follow the storyline in the next episode when I break down all the teams. But yeah, Brisbane, there was never a doubt. Men of Mystery, to be honest, I believed really strongly, and when I doubted, I believed too strongly, and when I doubted too much. And then I recorrected myself on the final day to where the only thing I got wrong on the final day was I believed the Curveballs were going to take 6th place, and I was wrong about that. I believed in the All-American team a little less after day 1, and I believed in them a little too much on day 3. And I was able to come back down into the appropriate ranking. It seemed like on day 3, I thought they had found their stride. And I was looking back at their game against the BDRL, the one that they won, and the other one was really close. And I thought, okay, I think they just had some hiccups in the first few days. They actually are really getting things together now. But turns out they didn't fully have it together. They were still figuring out positions even right before finals. and some synergies were off. We look at the BDRL. I doubted them so heavily in the first few days. I thought, nope, they're a B team. Nope, they're all pretty new. The out of town teams just need a chance to actually play and get their feet under them, and then they will become better. But the BDRL, I think, actually may have improved more than I given them credit for throughout the tournament, because dropping that one game to All-American seems like after that they hardly let a single thing happen wrong for the rest of the time. So by day 3, I decided, after day 3, I believed, and I was right to believe. I was shaky about it. There was definitely a part of me that was like, am I really going to, like, over all these people that I know are incredible players in all these different arenas? Yep, I was right. Yep, I'm glad I believed. Auckland, yeah, started out in 5th, and it felt kind of bad because I know they're good players and I really like them. I doubted them too much, putting them below Loveland. That was just a lot of hubris on my part, believing in Loveland. I was dead wrong about that. After my apology note, I stayed solid on them in 5th, and that was correct. The Laserforce crew, I doubted them every day except for after day 3, when I had some pretty big doubts about the Loveland curveballs, which actually, it wasn't so much that I mean, it was partially doubt in the Loveland curveballs, recognizing, like, I think a lot of rookie mistakes were happening and continuing to happen, but the Laserforce crew wasn't making them. Laserforce crew was solid throughout. And on after day 3, like, I kind of believed, like, I think their experience and their stability is going to make them higher than the curveballs. Then I went back to believing, and I was so wrong. So Laserforce crew shoving it in my face with some really unexpected playmaking, upside, communication, creativity. They deserve that 6th place spot. Loveland curveballs, yeah, I definitely was. Started high, got really high on them, went all the way down, put them from 5th to 7th by day 3. By day 4, I had them back up at 6th again, and they unfortunately just had some pretty, I think, some bad luck. I really do think, at least I can always look out and say, well, if the Angel situation hadn't happened, had Angel been playing in that first game, like, they probably all got shook up in their nerves and it didn't work out. I know there are rookie mistakes this tournament, and I expect that all those players are going to go out and continue to kick a lot of butt, become even better. When they all come home, I'm expecting that I'm going to fall to being a C tier player compared to all of them. But 7th place this tournament, and that's a credit to the teams above them playing at the level they did. Finally, Olympus, I stayed last on them all week, but to be honest, like, yeah, there wasn't a part of me that was going to call for a giant upset, especially because their rankings were pretty much set in stone. If they couldn't beat the curveballs handily and get games off of Auckland, it was kind of like no matter how well they did, they were locked into 8th. And so to put them any higher than this, it would have essentially been, I have to put them up in 6th, because they would have had to beat Auckland in finals and advance up the ladder. I wasn't projecting that, and to be honest with you guys, it nearly happened. By the skin of Auckland's teeth, they did not get killed out early. They did not lose a scout or a commander early in those games. And Olympus comes in at a very respectable 8th, considering, again, I think this might have been the highest level of competition I've ever seen at an internationals. Whew. There's the standings. Brisboom, BDRL, International Men of Mystery, All-American, Auckland A, Laserforce Crew, Loveland Curveballs, and Australia Olympus. Great tournament, everybody. It was amazing. Thank you for giving us something amazing to watch. Thank you for all the to all the people who helped out with the commentary, to all the people who helped create the stream, to people who ran the tournament, to Brisbane for hosting, and to our players, young and old, new and experienced, to help make the scene go. Looking forward to 26 very much. thank you for listening to the ZAP Report. And I will plan to make more of these when that comes around next year. See you, everybody.